Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to San Mateo. Certainly delighted to be here this afternoon. Today's short lecture is going to be on the cure for all disease, your immune system. Now, many of you are familiar with my website, thedoctorwithin.com. During this short talk, when I refer to the website, that's what I'm talking about, the Doctor Within. The immune system is one of those terms that everybody uses and very few can define. There is a reason there are so many terms like that in modern life, and it's called the corporate knowledge bases of Wikipedia and Google. Google, corporate control of information. Remember back in the day when there used to be such a thing as a Boolean search? How many people remember what that was? Both of you, okay. Today, as you know, let's say you type in the word immune system. Immediately, you will be beset by 600,000 websites who at one time in mankind's history have used the word immune system in no particular context. Why does Google spend $350 million per year in lobbying to create corporate control of information so that Google is now a verb in the English language with a small g? My opinion is, I always use this phrase, Google operate on the presumption of omniscience, the illusion of omniscience. In other words, the presumption is that everybody already knows everything they need to know. The presumption of omniscience. So why go into depth beyond the sound bites that are going to come up on your 2-second Google search? I'm not jaded about it, of course. So now, let's talk about the immune system. Organized medicine has defined the immune system, has divided the immune system into two sections, of course, cellular immunity and humoral immunity. Now, cellular immunity, as you may remember, involves specialized blood cells in your body, such as macrophages, platelets, mast cells, and a variety of T cells. The other section of the immune system in organized medicine is humoral immunity, and this involves the activity of your B lymphocytes, whose job is the production of, yes, immunoglobulins, a variety of immunoglobulins we call antibodies. So the theory is they will identify the microbe aggressor and mark him and be able to create antibodies should he trespass on your body in the future. That's the illusion. Cellular and humoral. These are the two divisions of the immune system according to any medical source. And you can Google virtual libraries on both of these topics. The problem is this. What medical science understands about the human immune system is in actuality only a... Thank you. Yes. The smallest fragment of the way, the elegant, sublime way in which your body really becomes immune to something. But that's the part that they need to know. That's all they need to know in order to accomplish their one and only purpose, which is the marketing of pharmaceuticals. I'm glad it's amusing. This is like my lounge act. Now, there is a vanishing demographic of people in the United States who have actually accomplished natural immunity. What is that? What on earth is natural immunity? Natural immunity is when a human from birth can achieve the highest level of immunity, the strongest possible immunity. Now, how is that possible? At the beginning, it's only possible one way. Number one, this pure, perfect child must not be
Vaccinated.
Thank you, G. American children are the most vaccinated children in the history of mankind. By the time an American child is 18 months old, he receives 36 vaccines, which is the approximate number that most other countries on earth give to the entire course of childhood. That's the first requirement for a human being to even have the smallest hope of reaching natural immunity: unvaccinated. No child is born with an intact immune system. When a child is first born, his immune system is literally struggling into existence during the first 2 years of his life, trying its best to accomplish the most rudimentary condition of immunity. That can only be accomplished if his immune system is not handicapped by a vast array of man-made immunosuppressive vaccines, other pediatric drugs, and toxic foods. He must have a clean, healthy diet, he must be unvaccinated, and he must have a minimum, if any, pharmaceutical drugs during the first 2 years of his life. How then is this perfect child going to attain natural immunity? His immune system will be challenged by gentle, regular stimulation from normal environmental stressors. No mainstream toxic baby formulas, no pasteurized dairy, no hydrogenated oils, no refined carbohydrates. The obvious, right? Raise your hands. How many of you in this room have children that you did not vaccinate? Okay, less and less. But many more in this room know people who have children who are not vaccinated. This is the best kept secret in America, in my opinion, because of the obvious empirical difference that anyone can notice by looking at a child. Okay, you look at the 2-year-old child who has not been vaccinated, who has not been drugged to the gills, the 2-year-old child who has not been poisoned by baby formula and all these processed foods. This child is alert, he is bright, he is intelligent, he is adjusted usually, and he rarely, if ever, gets sick. If he does get sick, he's better in a day or two. Do you know what I'm talking about, anyone? Yeah. In comparison, let's take this child and compare him to his peers of the same exact age. What do we see? We see this child has been fully vaccinated and drugged. He's sick all the time. He has difficulty holding your attention, looking at you, learning the whole thing. It's so empirical, it's so obvious. This is the current version of your textbook, Vaccination is Not Immunization. This is the new one, The War on Children. We go into the details of the lack of science behind modern vaccines. Children in this country get 69 vaccines by the time they're 18 years old. California is now the most dangerous state in the United States in which to raise a child, and that is why so many people are leaving the state. Either you know that or you don't. And it's because of bills like SB 277 and other bills where the parent no longer has the right to decide whether or not the child will be vaccinated. That's a whole other story. In addition to these initial stressors, he is also exposed to the usual immune stressors, immune suppressors that the rest of us are always exposed to all the time. In the air, the food, the water. Dispersions. Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.com. In addition to the other noxious chemicals that are permitted into our skies, 60,000 chemicals invented since World War II, completely unregulated, which have access to your water. That's why nobody drinks the tap water in California. Now, in the past 100 years or so, there have been many of the top scientists and best doctors who have ever lived did not buy this whole idea that there are hundreds of diseases which must be protected against by pharmaceutical drugs. A lot of them believe that really there is only one disease, and that is toxemia, or blood poisoning. How does blood poisoning happen? It happens, first of all, by the drugs and vaccines that you allow into yours and your children's sacrosanct bloodstream. There is a book available in every library in the United States called the Physician's Desk Reference, PDR for short. I just happen to have a copy, somebody gave me this, of the 1949 PDR. 1949 PDR. Now this book is only about 400 pages long, has a few hundred diseases for which there are drug protocols mentioned. Curiously, it has things like mercurochrome. Remember that? Yeah. And 5 other mercury-based medicaments. Anyway, don't get me started. It's a small book. The Physician's Desk Reference, 1949. Exhibit B. This is a fairly recent 2013 PDR, available in, wow, did you hear me? Available in any library. Almost 3,000 pages, literally thousands of diseases. Thousands of diseases, each with its own drug protocol, each protocol with its own ICD-9 billing code. So, take this thing.
So convenient, huh?
Yeah, the short version of this is these diseases were created for one reason and one reason only. This is one of the largest industries in the history of mankind. Why belabor the obvious, right? Now, in the psychiatric industry, they also analogously have their own book of diseases, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. In 1940, the DSM had only 26 mental illnesses that it had diagnoses for, with appropriate drug protocols. It was virtually a pamphlet in 1940. The most modern edition, the newest edition of the DSM is called the DSM-5, also printed in 2013, now has over 600 diagnosed medical diseases, each one of which has its own drug protocol and ICD-9 billing code. Now, it's amazing that the criticism of this number of mental diseases is not coming from the wacky chiropractors, is not coming from the holistic practitioners like myself. No, it's coming primarily from the psychiatric profession themselves, who are horrified at the lack of clinical foundation behind so many of these, quote, mental diseases. But it's, again, it's an industry. Now, lest I be branded as an anti-medical hysteric, I will acknowledge that on many occasions, organized medicine has saved my life. And I will also acknowledge this. At one time in their history, they really did pull the rabbit out of the hat. Remember? Yeah. In the 40s. What? When? Of course, Alexander Fleming and penicillin and the other antibiotics saved hundreds of people's lives who would have died from bacterial infections. Fleming predicted it was a double-edged sword from the very beginning. We have antibiotic resistance. We have overprescription of antibiotics.
However, medical science has never been able to match the triumph of penicillin. Of the thousands of drugs invented since the 1940s, the vast majority were market-driven, for-profit commodities. Adverse effects from today's drugs often equal or exceed any positive benefits.
Here's an interesting statistic. How many Americans die every year from diseases they did not have when they entered the hospital, which they acquired in the hospital, which were completely unresponsive to all known antibiotics? Answer is a conservative estimate. So my thesis is, and actually the point of this talk that I'm trying to get to is that a lot of scientists, a lot of practitioners, a lot of researchers we no longer are so convinced that all these diseases even exist. We like to think of it more as these diseases are adaptations. They are evolutionary adaptations to abnormal stressors, normal immune responses to abnormal stressors. Let's give an example. Your child, young child, okay, let's say the child is 2 years old. Now, for the first time, let's say he is exposed to something and he starts to cough and sneeze and his eyes water and his nose runs and he may develop a fever. And then through wiki Google type of propagandizing, the good parent is bound to go to Doc in the Box or, at least to Walgreens to get the appropriate fill in the blank, right? Tylenol, whatever. Because we are taught that these normal, eliminative, immune-building processes of the body are diseases themselves, which need particular drugs in order to cure them, right? About 8 years ago, I don't know if anyone remembers this, Doc, you probably do, the FDA came out with a paper that they published, and it listed 50 of the most common childhood cold remedies and drugs available in Walgreens, in the drugstores. And it listed them, and it said, we are no longer recommending any of these medications because they are ineffective and there is no science behind them. Well, that sort of came and went, and people didn't really pay much attention to that. And so today we still have the situation where people consider these normal immune-building responses. The immune system is trying to develop its own powers. Let's take fever. The child, for the first time, his forehead feels hot, so let's stick a thermometer in his mouth. If it's higher than 100 degrees, the parent may rush off to emergency, or the parent may just provide the child with Tylenol or whatever in order to what? To bring down the fever. Exactly. Ignorant of the fact, or not interested in the fact, that this is the immune system training itself, developing its own power. That little body is trying to learn how to create an inhospitable environment in order to protect itself from invaders for the rest of its life. They pretend that, the specter is, of course, meningitis. If the temperature is 104, 105, whatever, that is a 1 in 20 million chance. Most children who have very high fevers are fine in a week or so, and they have very strong immune systems as a result of that.
The point is, these over-the-counter medications for fever are immunosuppressive. They may inhibit the body from developing the power to raise its own temperature, which is a vital part of the developing immune system.
Now, one of the most classic examples of this idea of diseases as adaptations is probably the relationship between sickle cells and malaria. You're probably aware that endemic in the continent of Africa is the disease malaria, which has been rampant for centuries and killed many, many people. What happened is a lot of Africans developed, as an adaptation, their red blood cells changed from the normal round conformation to sort of a half-moon shape, a sickle cell shape. And even though this is regarded today as a disease in its own right, medical science has recognized that sickle cells are an evolutionary adaptation which save a lot of people in Africa from dying from malaria. This is the classic example of disease as adaptation. Here's another example. Your child is running and falls down, bumps his head on the floor, and instantly gets a bump on his head and it becomes inflamed. We are so worried, oh my God, let's rush to the refrigerator, fill up an ice bag, and put the ice bag on his head in order to Reduce the swelling. That's exactly right. Reduce the swelling. Exactly. Okay, the problem with that is edema, again, is a normal power of the developing immune system. We want to isolate, protect the area. We want to draw the proper red cells into beginning the healing process. Inflammation is not a disease itself unless for some reason it becomes prolonged, weeks or months. What is the #1 cause of death in the United States? Heart disease, right. One of the primary causes of heart disease is the ingestion of hydrogenated foods. 80% of the American public has an 80% processed food diet. I have a whole full-day seminar on hydrogenated foods. You can look on my website. The problem is they are man-made, they are brand new to our species, they cannot be metabolized by our digestive enzymes, and they end up as atherosclerotic plaque in our arteries. Diseases as adaptation. Another example, more with children. Pasteurized dairy. Children are recommended to drink milk, by mainstream advertising and by their pediatricians in order to build strong bones and strong teeth, all that. The problem is pasteurized dairy is a sensitizing allergen. What is pasteurized dairy? The milk has been heated to 171 degrees Fahrenheit to denature all the enzymes for one reason and one reason only, shelf life. The problem is the #1 cause of childhood asthma is pasteurized dairy. This is one of the few things that all holistic nutritionists agree on. We all agree. Your child has asthma, you want to get rid of it without using drugs, here's what you do. No pasteurized dairy for 60 days. No milk, cheese, butter, ice cream, or yogurt. And magically, the childhood asthma will resolve. But people, parents say this, no, I don't want to deprive little Johnny of his normal childhood pleasures. He must have his quart of Rocky Road ice cream before bed each night. I don't want to deprive him of that. And I'll go to the pediatrician and he will give me the Benadryl derivative which will control his asthma. That's the WikiGoogle conventional wisdom that we have today. Carcinogens, obviously from tobacco, radiation, vaccines, and cancer. It's no mystery, there's no controversy that these things are carcinogenic, but does the person really have to choose them? Does he have any option during his life to choose them? So many doctors have documented how the majority of cancers are earned. The illusion of organized medicine now is that cancer is a virus, or cancer is you have a genetic predisposition for cancer because your grandparents had some cancer. It's not your fault. We'll take care of everything. Abdicate responsibility for your health to us, your doctor. We'll take care of everything. How many people in this room have gone through the death watch with a family member who had cancer, who got cancer, received cancer treatment, and then died from cancer? How many? Okay, then you know what I'm talking about here. When I say this, the majority of people who die from cancer do not die from cancer at all. They die of cancer treatment. Most people eventually learn that, but they learn that too late. I have a lot of stories in the full-day seminar of that. Okay. Finally, my last example here is, how much time do I have? Foreign protein. For the last 2 million years, foreign protein in the mammalian species could be fatal. About 100 years ago or so, there was a major change in organized medicine. There was a brand new procedure that created a new disease in humans, and doctors called this anaphylaxis. You're exposed to some foreign protein and you go into anaphylactic shock and you may die. There was a guy, a scientist, Dr. Richer, and he was studying anaphylaxis. All the scientists and all the doctors who were studying this new phenomenon, widespread phenomenon of anaphylaxis, they realized that it was due to one thing: our new policy of mass vaccinating the population. For the first time, we are going to be injecting foreign proteins directly into the bloodstream of masses of human beings, bypassing nature's three innate immune systems, which are the skin, the respiratory system. In other words, if you are a pathogen who wants access to the human body, you must either make your way through the skin, be eaten, or be breathed in. Then you have some chance. No more are we protected by those three evolutionary safeguards. Now, everyone is being vaccinated, introducing foreign protein directly inside the human organism. Richet and the other scientists saw all this. They called it serum sickness, and they did not even try to hide it. It was well documented that it was being caused by vaccines. Everyone admitted it. The difference with Richet is he saw the big picture. He saw the natural selection picture. Here's what he said. Here's a quote from Charles Richet at that time. Anaphylaxis, perhaps a sorry matter for the individual, is necessary to the species. The individual may perish, it does not matter. The species must keep its organic integrity intact. So here we are again. Disease as adaptation. The species must survive. I go into this in great detail in my chapter on the website entitled The Peanut Allergy Epidemic. What is the Wiki Google conventional wisdom on how most of us get a disease? What do they tell us? They tell us by some accident, by some quirk of nature, you, quote, get a disease. Some bad bugs are maybe circulating in the cosmos, and by some accident, he wafts his way down into your body and implants himself into your body, creating a disease in you. Now it is the job of organized medicine to figure out what drug or what vaccine or what potion we're going to give you to kill the bug in you without killing you. That's the basic template here, right? Or now they're saying, it's not your responsibility, none of this is your responsibility, it's a virus or it's genetic predisposition. That's the newest justification for abdication of responsibility for your own health. But there's some problems with this. Let's take type 2 diabetes, for example. We are approaching 33% of the American population in this country are type 2 diabetic. Type 2 diabetic means you did it. You chose it. You earned it. You weren't born with it. Colon disease, due to the impossibly toxic and enzyme-free processed foods, 80% of our diet, so many people, their colon is incapable of natural peristalsis, the rhythmic wave-like movements. That no longer happens. They are toxifying from processed foods that they choose all day, every day for years, and colon cancer is the number 3 cancer in the United States today. Same with Barrett's syndrome, esophageal cancer. Years of reflux cause a change in the tissues in the esophagus, which is now in the top 10 cancers. That was no virus. That was no genetic predisposition. Let me do a medical history of you, and I'll show you exactly how your lifestyle choices created this normal adaptation. People get the diseases that they earn. Not 100% of the time, but most of the time. Okay. Same with cancer, yes. The culmination of years of abusive intake, faulty elimination, self-toxification. Allergies. Let's talk about allergies. Medical science regards allergies as a disease for which the child is not responsible, a disease for which the adult is not responsible. Why? Because these are growth industries. These are enormous industries. Allergy is not a disease. Again, allergy is an adaptation. It's an immune defense against acute toxicity, especially in children. We talked about pasteurized dairy as a cause, but the parents don't want to deprive their children. They would rather go to the pediatrician and take the prescribed drugs, and maybe the child will grow out of it. But allergic response or allergies, it's a normal adaptation. It's an immune response, showing that your immune system is still alive. There is an epidemic of allergy today in the United States for the last 30 years, really. Did you know that between 1980 and 2000, allergy cases doubled in the US? Then between 2000 and 2011, they doubled again. This is due to primarily to two things: processed foods and vaccines. As a nation, we have 4% of the world's population. We consume 45% of the world's drugs. Result, we have the worst health of any industrialized nation by any index you can choose. We are number 156 in infant mortality, which means there are 155 countries on earth whose children stand a better chance of survival to age 2 than ours. In the past 30 years, the top 10 causes of death in the United States have gone unchanged. Skyrocketing of infectious and degenerative diseases. How are drug profits and hospital profits doing? Upwards of $2.5 trillion in this country. We are the only country in the world with direct marketing of drugs to consumers on TV. I want to end this short talk with a ray of hope. You don't have to follow this Wiki Google program. There is a way out. You can detoxify yourself. You can take steps toward glowing health. Besides getting your spine adjusted, you can make sure that you can learn about the foods that you choose for your lifestyle and promote glowing health. On the website, thedoctorwithin.com, there are 3 chapters that you can read. Very simple formula on how to accomplish this. The last resort, magic bullet approach may not be the answer to your particular disease. You've already been drugged to the gills. How's it working out so far? When you want to promote real healing, your own immune system must be involved. The 60-day program consists of a simple, natural diet, which most of us already know, and 7 supplements whose goal is twofold: to clear the tract and clear the blood. The cure for all disease, your immune system. No matter what anyone tells you, the only way anyone recovers from virtually any disease is if your immune system is allowed to marshal its own powers and return your body to homeostasis once more.
The point of this lecture, then, is to remind us that in little more than 50 years, the medical industry has gone from a few $100 million to nearly $3 trillion a year. Hundreds of new diseases have been invented in order to market thousands of new pharmaceuticals. Unfortunately, our health does not demonstrate the benefits of all this medication. Infectious and degenerative diseases are increasing in leaps and bounds. We really are the sickest of all industrialized nations. There is an escape, however. Protect the immune system, strengthen it, reinforce it. This lecture tried to offer an introduction on precisely how to accomplish that. Never before has it been so vitally important to inform ourselves beyond the daily news programming, to protect the precious immune systems of ourselves and our children, and first of all, to do no harm. It is still possible to have glowing health and natural immunity, and indeed, that is our authentic state of being.
Thank you for your kind attention. If anyone wants to get adjusted or talk to me further, thank you.